The boys are able to get it done today. A lot on the docket. A possible Trevor Richards trade. Is it a possibility? Also, Joey Votto. What's going on with him?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube or the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. I'm Braden Uwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Uwasco. Carter First, too, as well on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Blue Jays. Drop a subscription if you're new here on YouTube. We notice a lot of you guys aren't subscribed. It really helps us out, and it keeps us at the top of your page. So you guys always get your most up-to-date Blue Jays info. Carter, it was a good day. The boys got a win, barely, I'll say, but they got a win. And then we got just a ton of news to go over today, and sort of some pretty interesting stuff, right? You know, coming up to the All-Star break and the trade deadline eventually coming up as well. Oh man, there's a lot going on in Blue Jays land and a lot of decisions that have to be made, Carter. But let's start with yesterday's game. What's just give me overall thoughts on this one?
If they would have lost when they were up 7-0, that would have been the end of the season for me. I don't know how I would have moved on. But again, they just squeak it out. Jose Berrios doesn't have his greatest outing. He looked really good up until the fifth inning. The fifth inning, he got hit around quite a bit. That's what happens again when you throw the ball over the middle of the plate. The bullpen was actually decent for once. Nate Pearson had a great outing. Trevor Richards had one run given up, but that's because Bo Bichette kind of threw a ball into Mars there, just into the opposing team's dugout. A tough play, but one that you hope that he can make, or at least not like fire 10 feet left of Vladdy. I'd like Vladdy to come off the bag just to hold him to one run there for one bag instead of getting up to two. But Chad Green comes out again, leadoff double. Jeremy Pena doing his best Jordan Romano impression, but after that comes out with 2 strikeouts and gets a fly ball. Just all around, other than your starting pitching. Again, this team never can fire on all cylinders, but they do drag out the win. Hopefully they can pick up the series win against the Houston Astros for today's game.
Yeah, Carter, you know what? We talked about something, I think it was yesterday, and I mean all season really, but it's the add-on runs, right? This team just can't seem to add on runs late in games, and that's an issue for them. I mean, they get a run in the first, then they get 4 in the third, and then 2 in the fourth, and that's all they score. The rest of the game, they're held off the score sheet, and in a game where Jose Berrios doesn't give you his best outing, you got to be able to tack on more runs because a team like the Houston Astros are always going to fight their way and try to claw their way back into a game like this. So that was a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I'm happy they got the win. I think they fought for it. Some guys showed up big time. We can go over some of the stats as well. But overall, the add-on runs are so big. And in a game you start off so hot, you got to be able to tack on some more.
Well, just looking at this game, I mean, when you have Spencer Arrighetti in for the first 4 innings, and that's where they get all of their runs. You get the bullpen who are better arms, and the Blue Jays start having some bad at-bats. So, again, you score 7 runs. I'm not really going to complain about that whatsoever. You get a touchdown against the Houston Astros. I'm hoping that with this pitching, again, the bullpen has been very shaky, but with the starting pitching, you'd hope that they can at least drag it out and get that win after scoring 7 runs, and they barely do, obviously, with 6. But yeah, you see the Houston Astros actually throwing decent bullpen arms, and the at-bats go so much worse. So it's good that you got to the starting pitcher. The Houston Astros bullpen is hurting right now. It has been thrown a lot. It has been overworked. That's why Arrighetti had to stay out there probably longer than they wanted him to. But yeah, you score 7 runs off of a pitcher that's struggled so far this season. That's what you have to do. You got to hit against the good pitchers. You can hopefully hit against the good ones as well. But I think I said on one of these episodes this week that the Toronto Blue Jays have this weird thing where they can't seem to hit off bad pitchers, and they usually hit decently off good ones. Kind of flip the narrative. You got your runs off the bad pitcher, and yeah, that's something that I definitely can't complain about if you're going to score 7 runs in a baseball game.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not complaining about the runs either. I just think in a situation like this where they start to fight back, I sort of expected them to add a couple on, and it just never seemed to happen. In saying that, I mean, you get 7 runs on a team, you should win a ball game. That's what we always say, right? If you can score 6, you're more likely than not going to win that baseball game. So obviously that came to fruition. Yeah, bullpen, great day. Berrios, yeah, I mean, struggled. The Trevor Richards or the first hit on Trevor Richards, that's just upsetting. I mean, Bo Bichette tries to make a nice play. I think in that he's obviously he's not going to hold on to that ball. We know Bo Bichette, he's going to try to make the play. Vlad's got to come off the bag there. It wasn't a good throw, but I mean, I don't know how many years is this of Vlad playing first base and doesn't know to, hey, grab the baseball so we don't give up an extra base or possibly two. I don't know. Then the pickoff move as well by Trevor Richards, which gives the runner three. Doesn't obviously go as planned. Ball goes into the outfield. Doesn't go our way. I think it was an okay move. I think Trevor Richards was just a little bit late turning around there. But I mean, that happens. That stuff's going to happen. He's trying to make a big play and stop their run. I get it. And that run didn't overly matter, so I can't really hate on it too much. I'd want to go into some stats just on today's game. Spencer Horwitz, that home run was absolutely filthy. Little bit of a bat. I don't want to say flip, but draw was pretty electric too. I just caught the video on Twitter. It was pretty cool. So he goes 1 for 4 with a home run, 1 RBI. Vladdy goes 1 for 3, 2 runs scored as well with a walk. Justin Turner 1 for 2. Springer, the home run, 3-run shot. You gotta love it. Good on that guy. His bat is starting to show up. And I like you said, Carter, we don't need George Springer to go 4 for 4 every game with 2 home runs. If he can, drive in some RBIs and he can get some balls into the outfield and get a couple hits, that's all we're really looking for from him right now, at least to get back into it. And he's done that. He's been able to hit home runs. He's been getting the power back. He's fighting in at bats a little bit more, which is what I like to see. He's fouling off pitches. He's staying in counts. That's what I want to see from George Springer. I feel like he's looking like the George Springer we all want right now. I'm just not sure how consistent he can be with this. We'll have to wait and see. I don't want to speculate because I'm praying that he could just keep this up for, the next 19 years, apparently. Because I don't think this guy is ever going to not play baseball. He's just going to go until he's about 97 years old. But yeah, just a good day all around. I really was pretty happy watching the start of this baseball game, and then of course it gets later in the game, and I wasn't thrilled, but I think overall there's good things to take out of this one at least.
Yeah, we say don't take the small victories anymore. We need wins. Got the win, so it might have been kind of ugly getting there, but hey, we did get there. Yordan Alvarez, that one wasn't a terrible pitch. It's a good swing. A lot of pitches in that inning just weren't great. Like Jose Altuve had a ball that was. It was pretty down the middle in that inning as well. He had another, I think it was hit in the 7th, where it was a ball that wasn't even close. It was off Nate Pearson. I think it was a curveball or slider low, and he just throws his hands out there, push it into right field. Jose Altuve is just a good hitter. Yeah. So yeah, like with Jose Berrios, I've said he's one of those guys that should just go out there, throw 6 innings, give you 2 earned runs. Again, that's what we want. It's going to happen probably 80% of the time. But again, pitchers have their blow up starts. This Houston Astros lineup has gotten a lot better. My big takeaway here is Nate Pearson. Nate Pearson actually looked really good here. Again, not a guy that we necessarily want to have as our 3rd highest leverage reliever, but a guy that gives us multiple innings of no runs. That's exactly what we needed after Jose Berrios, a little bit of a hiccup in that 5th inning. One thing that I do want to talk about over this game is we always talked about how bad George Springer looked at in the first spot. Now Bo Bichette's looking pretty goddamn bad in that first spot as well. So a lineup right now that I would want to see is, again, IKF being out with that knee injury, which we'll get more into. Definitely sucks not having him up in the lineup. But again, we've done so many lineup flip ups and stuff like that. I'm not completely sold on George Springer yet. I think you leave him at the fifth spot for sure. Spencer Horwitz is my leadoff hitter. I don't think that should change at all. Bo Bichette just not having the greatest at bats. The problem that I come to here is who would you hit number 2 in this lineup? IKF being out, David Schneider hasn't looked that good. You're not going to throw Chano there. He hasn't been good recently. Kevin Kiermaier is just not even an option. I guess Justin Turner may be an option if you want to keep him at the number 2 spot. Has been better recently. I think that's probably who I would go with. But Braden, I'll throw it over to you. Who would your? Let's do top 4. We'll just keep it as the first 4 in the lineup. Who would your top 4 be on the Toronto Blue Jays right now?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I got to go Horwitz number 1. I think that's just known throughout the entirety of Blue Jays land that Horwitz should be hitting 1. I don't understand the Bo Bichette play here at 1. It's just mind-boggling, some of the decisions that are made, and we've touched on that far too much, so I'm not even going to get into it. I would go Justin Turner at number 2. The way he battles in counts and can work counts, I think that works for that number 2. If you can get runners on base, Justin Turner can do that, and I think when he's hot, that is the best part of his game, is that he works counts hard. He fouls pitches. He makes them work for it and maybe draw some walks. He can get some hits as well. I like Turner there. I would hit, honestly, right now, Vlad 3, and I would I would give Springer one more spot to hit 4 right now. If we always talk about riding the hot hand, and I hate this. I mean, I don't hate to say this. I love to say this, but Springer is the guy that's hot right now. He's getting the RBIs. Him and Vlad together. I mean, they're a tandem of driving and runs. So as of right now, as of today, I wouldn't mind seeing Springer in the 4 hole because I look up and down this lineup and I don't know who else is going to do it right now. David Schneider, still my boy, still love him, but the guy just isn't hitting the baseball as consistently as we need him to. So you got to ride with who's doing well.
Yeah, see, just looking at, like, my biggest thing was that, yeah, you don't have Justin Turner at 2 spot. Who else do you have? Like, you're not going Kevin Kiermaier, you're not going Kirk, you're not going Jano. And 2 guys that stats I do want to go over. I'll go into that positive one after this, and that's going to be in George Springer, obviously. But looking at Davis Schneider over his last 15 and his last 7 games, over his last 15, he's hitting 143 with a 234 on base percentage and a slugging of 310. And it doesn't get any better when you go to the last 7. It actually gets a whole lot worse. He's 1 for 16, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, an average of 0.63, an on base of 118, and a slugging of also 0.63. So David Schneider, a guy that was relied on earlier on in the season, just over the last month really has not looked that good, not really looked like himself. But again, I thought that was bad. Then you go to Dalton Varsho's stats, and you look at his last 15 games, a guy that has been one of the best players on the Toronto Blue Jays. When we did our MVP, like, midseason episode about a week and a half ago, I said right now, Dalton Varsho. Wouldn't be surprised if Vladdy takes over. I think already right now, you could probably argue that Vladdy has taken over. But Dalton Varsho in his last 15, he is 5 for 52. He has 4 walks, 22 strikeouts for an average of 0.96, an on base of 161, slugging 173. And then the last 7, he is 1 for 24. So it's one of those things that you can't have Dalton Varsho hitting high in this lineup. You can't have David Schneider hitting high in the lineup. Kevin Kiermaier shouldn't even really be getting at bats. This offense is sort of thin. You got a few guys that are hot right now, but IKF being injured hurts this lineup immensely. You could Addison Barger, maybe you experiment with. I don't feel comfortable necessarily with him hitting 2. So I think you got to keep those as being the top 4. Maybe you give Leo Jimenez a shot while IKF is out. That is definitely an option. But this offense, with all these guys being hot, we're barely scraping by in games, albeit this bullpen hasn't been really good recently. It's going to be a problem because what happens when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. cools off? Hopefully he can hit 295 and have immense power. But again, it's a hot and cold sport. It's really hard to stay consistent for a very long span, especially in the MLB. The All-Star break's coming up too. That throws a wrench into things. So I'm just wondering where this team's going to be at because they're already struggling right now with the offense being pretty hot over the last 2 weeks. Where are we going to be at when this offense kind of cools down and we have nothing? And it hurts watching Toronto Blue Jays games.
Yeah, and I don't want to use the injury as an excuse, the injuries overall as an excuse. Like, don't get me wrong, IKF really does hurt being out. He was one of the guys that we relied on heavily this season, just to get on base and just to be that run that can be driven in. But so far, I mean, yeah, we've talked a lot about injuries, and there have been a lot of injuries to this bullpen, to this team just as a whole. Bo Bichette was out for a while. Now it's IKF. It just seems like to be one after another here. But I don't use, and I don't think you do either, but I don't use this as an excuse. I don't use the injuries as an excuse because this team wasn't playing up to their standard or what we assumed was their standard way before we really got hit with the injury bug. So I can't stand when people see that. I've been seeing that online lately. People saying, well, they're injury. Everybody's injured. So what do you expect from this team? I'm like, well, that's not really a good case. I mean, go back and look at everybody's stats. And we've done that over the past bunch of episodes. It's just not going well for this team. And the injuries don't help, but it's not the main factor. IKF being out does suck though, because he's our debatable second best hitter on this team.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the biggest problem going into this whole season was the Ross Atkins just building this entire roster. You kind of knew going into it. We tried to make ourselves believe that Justin Turner was going to be this perennial hitter. He was going to hit 300 with average at 39 years old. This is kind of what Justin Turner was supposed to do coming in. Again, maybe you want him to hit 270 like he has his career averages. I think his career average is around 280, but he's 39-year-old Justin Turner. If anyone would have said IKF's going to hit 290 and this team is going to be 7 games below 500 now, they probably would have called you insane. There's so many, you're right, so many other things that went wrong, but I think it all starts at Ross Atkins and how he built this roster. This team obviously needed a power bat. It was the most obvious thing, probably among Blue Jays fans. Everyone's like, hey, we need more power. Teoscar Hernandez reunion, Cody Bellinger would have been good. Tommy Pham, literally anybody that hit for power would have been nice on this team. Ross Atkins doesn't do that. He goes to the defense first experiment. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse because we talk about this all the time, but this is kind of where we're left with Toronto Blue Jays baseball. It's something that we have to discuss, something that we're going to have to be discussing for the next 80 or so games, unless somehow this team goes on a big winning streak. But again, I said in the last episode, this biggest winning streak on this team so far this season is 4. So again, you can't get too crazy with things. You can't expect them to go on this miracle 12-game winning streak. And even if they do, they're like, 5 games above 500. So it's, again, like, there has to be this huge winning streak to get them back in contention. I just don't see it as being a realistic thing for how consistent this team just plays baseball throughout the season.
Yeah, the only good part right now of watching this team is they do have those games where they play well. Today, the offense was fun to watch, but then they'll go back and they'll score 2 runs in 2 games for the next 2 probably. And that's what we are expecting because that just is the trends. It's a good game and then 2 bad games, and then a good game and then 2 bad games. So we'll have to see. I mean, we still got one more game of this Astros series to go over a little bit, and we got a ton to talk about with Trevor Richards' possible trade, a Marlins DFA that I thought would be interesting to bring up, and then, of course, our main man, Joey Votto, putting on a clinic. We'll take a quick break, come back with all that after this. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation, rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find the perfect stay, even in your baseball rivals' city. As you guys know, we used Booking.com to book our trip to Toronto. I'm going down to Minneapolis at the end of the summer, and I'll probably use Booking.com for that. When I went down to New York, we used the same thing. It is the best place to do all of your travel booking. From hotels that look over stadiums to family-friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today at Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode also brought to you by Game Time. You guys know I love Game Time. It might be one of my top 2 favorite apps on my phone because it gives me cheap and affordable tickets. With their Flash, Zone, whatever else deals that they have, you might as well look through. They have about 1 million deals going on all the time. It's so convenient because you can always find cheap and affordable tickets in a section if you go to a baseball game, in a section that you can still watch very good baseball. I think we were in section like 200, 211 at the Jays Stadium. It was awesome. We got fantastic seats when we used Game Time. You can see the view from your seat, which is even better, so that we knew exactly what we were going to be seeing. We spread it out all over the ballpark, three different locations throughout the weekend, and it was awesome. Like I said, they also have their last-minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So, Carter, lots to talk about. I'm going to go over, I'm going to just shout out a bunch of different things at you because there's a lot of just Blue Jays news in general and then a couple other things. I'm just going to ask you some questions, get your thoughts and feels. You can send it back to me. I'll do the same. Let's start off, I think, with sort of the Trevor Richards debacle. There's been some talk about the Trevor Richards trade, and is this a possibility of a guy who gets moved to the deadline because he is playing well? And he's an old guy. You're not an older guy. I don't want to say old guy, but older guy who you just don't necessarily know how many solid years he has left. He's a little bit inconsistent. Is this a guy that you could possibly see the Blue Jays selling high on right now?
See, my thing with this Trevor Richards stuff and sort of the entire selling at the deadline thing as well is that the Toronto Blue Jays have been fairly adamant that they don't want to completely sell and go into this big rebuild. So looking at the bullpen right now, you don't have really any good arms throwing in this bullpen. You got Chad Green, you got Trevor Richards. Other than that, you're not really trusting anyone that's in this bullpen right now. Again, you'll have Yimi Garcia coming back. Jordan Romano has a setback, so there's no timetable on him at all. This elbow was giving him more discomfort. I think that came out on July 2nd. So another thing, just another shot at this bullpen. So you can move on from Trevor Richards. Again, this season, it's still up for debate, but I think a lot of Blue Jays fans are going on the side of the season is starting to look like a lost season. So in that retrospect, you want to sell high Trevor Richards. It's not even really a sell high candidate because he has been so good over the last year and a half. What with Trevor Richards, if you could get a highly touted prospect back for him, you're probably not going to get much MLB talent back because it's going to be a deadline deal. A team that's going to want to bolster their bullpen, trying to make a playoff run. So you get a prospect for Trevor Richards. You have to be open to it. It's the spot this team's left you in. But again, when you're looking back to this big retool, it's seeming like Ross Atkins wants to do if he's even going to be here for it. If you trade away all of your bullpen arms, again, you look at this bullpen from last year to this year, everything's completely changed. So maybe it is easier to find hidden gems in bullpens, and you got to find just kind of random guys off the street that are going to throw you 95 and have an ERA around 3. But is that a risk you're willing to take? You got to assume that Jordan Romano's going to come back stronger. Chad Green, obviously not with the team after this year. A bunch of stuff, man. There's a ton of problems, a ton of things that they're going to have to consider. But with Trevor Richards, if you can get anything good for him, that being Chad Green, Yimi Garcia, any of these guys, if you get something that opens your eyes and you think that you can get a good deal off of it, I think you got to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily know that I'd love to see Trevor Richards get traded, but at the point that we're left in, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he was one of the pieces that ended up moving. The other thing, Joey Votto, I just want to hop into it. He 3-hit game, 2 doubles for Joey Votto. I think it was 3 RBI. The guy was just going loose today. So the Blue Jays have sort of come out and said that whenever Joey Votto feels like he's comfortable and ready to join the club, when he feels like he can contribute, they will find a spot for him, which I love to hear. I want to see him. If he's doing well and he feels like he can produce it at the MLB level, I think we have no other option but to bring him up and hope that his bat can heat up this team. I mean, if you insert him into this lineup, who's maybe has a semi-hot bat, I don't know. Then you find maybe that another 3-4 hole hitter that can drive in runs. I think that's exactly what this team needs right now. So it would be huge. Do I see it in the near future? I could have said this at the beginning of the year that I saw it in the near future, and then it just kept getting pushed and pushed back. So I don't know how much validity I actually put into any of this, if he's going to even get a call up. I don't know. But that is what's been reported. So I would have to assume he's sort of starting to feel close to being able to join the MLB club.
Yeah, I just want to go back to Chad Green a bit. I think I said that he was in his last year. He's got one more year after this. The weekend kind of is taking a beating out of me. I don't know if I sound a little bit nasally on this podcast, but this is the first sickness of 2024 for me. Braden's already had 15 of them, so
I've not any yet.
Yeah, that's what they all say. But anyway, back to Joey Votto. The only thing with Joey Votto for me is that, I mean, he had one good game. That's pretty much all that happened. Again, you're looking for offense from anywhere. But you look at Joey Votto and you put him in this lineup. How would you work this around? Vladdy's hot. Spencer Horwitz is hot. Justin Turner is fairly hot as well. Do I want Joey Votto in the lineup right now over any of them? No, absolutely not. I'm not going to lie. And then you look at defensively. Spencer Horwitz maybe at 2. Vladdy at first. Justin Turner. You're not throwing Justin Turner at 3. Maybe you throw Vladdy at 3 from time to time. Not necessarily comfortable with Vladdy at 3 either, though. But there's 4 guys with 3 positions. Well, so I don't know if you have room for Joey Votto necessarily on this roster unless he's hitting 350 in Dunedin, and he's got to move up. He's very far away as well. He's not even close to being AAA yet. So yeah. Joey Votto, I just think it's a tough guy to rely on. But for a team that's looking for hope from anywhere we could get it, I'm all in for the Joey Votto comeback story.
Yeah, what it would have to be is, of course, we've talked, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about Vlad taking balls at 3 just in case. And so I would think that would be probably what would happen is Vlad would slide over to 3, especially with, I mean, who knows how long this IKF injury is going to be. I don't think it's going to be that crazy long. But I think that if IKF was still injured, then you get Vlad at 3, you get Horwitz at 2, you get JT at 1, and then Joey Votto becomes your DH. But again, like you said, how long is this away? How good has he actually been? I mean, it's Dunedin stats, so I mean, you guys can go and search some of Joey Votto's last how many ever. Actually, yeah. So who knows? I don't know about Joey Votto. I don't know what his stats necessarily are. I haven't done a full deep dive. He had a good game. I saw that. Found it a little bit interesting. Carter, the other thing that I want to get into here, sort of a bigger thing. I got a couple other like little pieces. But for an interesting talker for me and you, the Miami Marlins have DFA'd Tim Anderson. Now, I'm not saying that this would be an amazing pickup or anything like that, but maybe somebody that could possibly help this team in a situation where if you get to the trade deadline and you have to make moves, maybe this is a guy that could come in and fill some spots. He is a career 278 hitter with an OBP of 308 and a slugging of 411, OPS 718. He's not the most ideal hitter. He's very hot and cold, very streaky from season to season. He is a two-time All-Star. I don't know, Carter. What do you think about him? He's sort of what this could be somewhat of a possibility, but I think it's going to come down to what or if any moves get made around the trade deadline.
Yeah, and I don't know if Tim Anderson's at a point where teams want to take a flyer on him. He hasn't been good in the last year and a half, but for a Blue Jays team that's offense has been just horrendous. I mean, it wouldn't be the worst idea. But again, you add Tim Anderson, does that leave room for Joey Votto? It's probably a situation that you have to consider there as well. Leo Jimenez is on the bench right now. Who else would it be? Just kind of talking through it here. Alejandro Kirk would be another one. Kevin Kiermaier most of the time. And then I guess you'd have Barger or something like that. Is that how it look like right now? I don't have it right in front of me. And man, thinking's right now is tough for me. I've been struggling through it a little bit here. But I do have Joey Votto's stats. I think this should be updated because it's only 19 at-bats. But maybe they didn't have the game that he played in on Tuesday. In the stat line here. But I have 211 average, 620 OPS, which is actually might be over Bo Bichette. So that might be a better OPS than Bo Bichette, even though this is in single A. So you can't take a lot away from that, unfortunately. But with Tim Anderson, I just don't know if there's room for him necessarily. But does he provide you that much upside? No, not at all. Like this is like one of those things that it's like, is any team going to be in on George Springer before his little breakout here? Probably not. Like this guy has 2 more years at $25 million. He's getting older. He hasn't really shown you much other than this last week here. So Tim Anderson, if he's really interested in playing or something like that, he wants to start in AAA, maybe, sure. But do I want to sign to this MLB team right now? Probably not with the recency bias that we've had against Tim Anderson.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I just threw it out there. I thought it was a little bit of an interesting piece, a possible, something. I'm sort of scouring for anything that could be a possibility for this Toronto Blue Jays team right now. Just whatever. Maybe a guy gets lucky and he heats up. I don't know, gets this team some wins. At this point, I don't know. One more thing I want to get into. I will get into it on the third segment here. The sort of all-star finalists for first base have been released, and the Blue Jays put out sort of a little stat thing by Vlad and Ryan Mountcastle. So I want to just compare the two. We'll get into that in Game 3 coming right up.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. You are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So I haven't picked more than on a Toronto Blue Jays stat line in a while. The Toronto Blue Jays, just watching them play baseball was just hurting me on the insides a little bit here. But since we've had a little bit of offensive upbringing recently, I'm going to take more than on 1.5 bases on George Springer and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. 3 weeks ago, I did not think I'd say I'd be taking more anything on George Springer other than maybe strikeouts. But I'm also going to take more than 7 fantasy points for this next game against the Astros for Vladdy, because Vladdy has been raking if you've been watching the games. If you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download Prize Picks and start making your picks today. You download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. It's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
Almost hit that one right. Anyway, Carter, the last sort of piece I want to get into here before we tee up today's game is the All-Star finalists for first base, Vlad Guerrero Jr. versus Ryan Mountcastle. Just a couple stats I want to compare these two with. We have Ward, Vlad 2.6, Ryan Mountcastle 1.8. OPS, but this was before yesterday's game, I do believe. OPS 846 for Vlad, 777 for Ryan Mountcastle. The average, Vlad 297, Ryan Mountcastle 273, and an OPS plus, Vlad with 141 and Ryan Mountcastle with 124. Vlad is the first in the AL East in OPS, in average, in OPS, and in WAR for first baseman. So there you go. Congrats, Vlad. He should be a first ballot sort of Hall of Famer, All-Star here. He should get the first fan vote there. So that's good to see. We'll at least have one Blue Jay in there. Maybe Jose Berrios gets the nod as well. We'll have to wait and see when that stuff sort of gets released, and we'll keep you guys updated as well. But Carter, looking into sort of game 3 here, I think I know this is a must-win game for the Toronto Blue Jays. I hate to say it, but you have to start winning series if you want to compete at all. And of course, it comes against a guy that no-hit us, Ronel Blanco, a guy that I didn't know a whole lot about before that happened. And then he gets what is it called? Like Player of the Month card or whatever it is in MLB The Show. And then that's the guy I see for about a month and a half straight of playing that game because everybody's using him. And he goes up against Yusei Kikuchi. Ronel Blanco, 2.49 ERA. Yusei Kikuchi right now, 4.18 ERA. I don't know how to feel about this one. I think that the Blue Jays are going to get to him. I don't think we see that kind of performance from Ronel Blanco again. I think that's just not in the cards. I don't realistically think it's going to be close to that. I think that the Blue Jays are going to get to him. I think if the bats can stay a little bit hot here, I think it'll be a very different looking game compared to the last time we saw him.
Well, I got a little bit of a positive spin zone here. So Ronel Blanco obviously no hit us, but then I think like a month and a half after, he got caught using sticky stuff. So what was he doing against the Jays? He's using sticky stuff. He was cheating, obviously.
Yes, he was
cheating. The Blue Jays couldn't get a hit. He's a cheater.
Yeah.
So what do you want the Jays to do? The Jays can't even hit normally. How are they supposed to hit against cheaters? Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. But
they might as well have been banging the drum again, eh?
An easy cover story for this Astros team would just be get Charlie Montoyo back in there. He plays the bongos anyway. He has an excuse. He's been doing it for years now. And it's just another step to their plan here to just be little cheaters in the World Series, and just might as well start in the regular season. I'm not really expecting it anymore.
That might be the play for the Astros. They need all the help they can get, apparently, with all the cheating stuff that they've gone through. We had to take a little pause there because we just got ding-dong ditched by a bunch of kids in the middle of the podcast. It's sort of annoying, you know? I feel like the old man yelling at the kids to get off my lawn or whatever.
No, see, it's ever since that thunderstorm where you were just like flinching at the thunderstorm. Now you're flinching at the door, and like the doorbell, everything. The kids were like making faces at you in your room there. I don't know. Maybe the kids just it's something different with you, Braden. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to leave it at that.
They just don't respect the Blue Jays baseball team here. That's what it is. They're throwing disrespect at the Jays.
Well, I mean, how can't you throw disrespect to the Jays right now? You got to be a little bit shady if you're talking about Blue Jays baseball, especially as much as we are. Like it can't be positive all the time. But with Ronel Blanco, the biggest thing is going to be, can the offense stay consistent? That's my thing. You're going against a good pitcher, you're going to have to be able to get runs off of them. You hopefully can. The problem again is when you're thinking about it in the broad picture, we used our best 3 relievers in this last game. So there's going to be a lot of Henny Cabreras. Jose Cuas might get a start here. Don't have to worry about Tim Meets anymore. So, sorry, a little bit of a ricochet shot there. But, yeah, with no bullpen depth, that's also going to be a problem, even if Yusei Kikuchi can work deep in his game. But the biggest thing for me is offensive consistency. If Vladdy can rake, if George Springer can maybe get another hit against his former team, that's something that I want to see. I'm taking more away from the offense and the bullpen, unfortunately, right now. Because, again, at least if the offense scores right and we lose the game, say it was 8-7 in this last game, I would have hated life, but it would have been a lot more entertaining game to watch than 3-1 game that happened in the first game of the series. But there's just a couple more things I wanted to go over. I did mention that Yordan Alvarez did hit that home run, obviously a 3-run bomb. Yordan Alvarez, I just did a little stat check here. I always feel like he just rakes against the Toronto Blue Jays, and I definitely was not wrong. Yordan Alvarez's batting average of 296 with 32 hits, 10 home runs, and 23 RBIs. And 25 runs scored in 29 games against the Toronto Blue Jays. So he's pretty much getting a hipper game. It's over a hipper game. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting for power. Yordan Alvarez, just another great baseball player that just happens to kill the Jays pretty much every single time he goes out there and plays them. But I think you have Yordan Alvarez in your fantasy team. So
great fantasy pickup. Great.
I guess there's a little bit of just ricochet shots every single time that happens there. Like he hits up a home run. You're like, a little bit, maybe a part of you is like, oh, this is like, okay, I guess it's going to be anyone on the Astros. But again, we'd rather just probably see the Toronto Blue Jays win at the sacrifice of our fantasy teams. But yeah, how good is Yordan Alvarez?
Oh man, he is just gross. Like watching him play, the power within his swing is just crazy. And he to be able to do it so consistently. I mean, I think he's right up there with guys that are very, very exciting to watch. I mean, you can throw Judge on there, Yordan Alvarez, those two guys. I mean, they just swing heavy. Like every time they swing the bat, you're like, this ball's got a chance.
Yeah, a guy that just just rakes. He hits the ball so hard. And we have Vladdy that's starting to do that now. But if we could have another player, imagine we had like a Juan Soto, Aaron Judge punch. I think I'm going to be jealous of the Yankees for a long time, especially if Juan Soto ends up re-signing, which I don't even want to put out to the universe. But I got one more thing to go over here. And we've sort of referenced it briefly here, but just wanted to flat out say it, get it out, the information out for you guys. IKF has been put on 10-day IL with a left knee sprain. That was retroactive to July 1st. And the Blue Jays pull up number 5 prospect, Leo Jimenez, who is also a shortstop. IKF John Schneider said will be out a minimum of 10 games, so there's no hope for him coming back earlier. Again, with IKF, you probably want to slow play with how good he's been with such an integral part, as we've said, to this team so far this season. You definitely don't want to speed up his recovery. But with Leo Jimenez, it's the main guy I want to get into because maybe Toronto Blue Jays haven't heard of this guy. We've heard about him quite a bit, especially since we've been watching the Toronto Blue Jays every day. I didn't know as much about him before as I do this season. Now I got a little bit on him, did a little bit of my research into him. Good outfielder, looks very strong instincts, a guy that has a good arm as well. But Leo Jimenez, he earned a promotion from Keegan Matheson. He is hitting .271 with a .416 on base percentage in AAA, so walking a ton. On Keegan Matheson says he's a legitimate shortstop. This is a guy that might have a bigger role on the 2025 team and on the future, especially with the Bo Bichette being up in the air thing as well. A shortstop that is a guy that can hits for average, gets walked a ton. I think it's going to be interesting to see how often they actually do throw Jimenez in the lineup. I have a weird feeling he's not going to play a lot. We're not going to see a ton of him, but again, it's a cool story to watch, a little bit of the future with the Toronto Blue Jays. But it seems like we're getting everyone in one season. So we're for the future, and then next year, the year after, it's not going to be any really new and enticing prospects other than Ricky Tiedemann being pulled up for this team. So that's one thing that is in the back of my head. But I guess it is fun to see all the young guns kind of get pulled up here. Just see, even if it's in a small sample size, what they can do in the MLB.
Yeah, it's fun. I just did I play way too much. My entire life just seems to be MLB at this point. I've been playing March to October, which you play as the team in the key moments throughout the season. And I got a chance to call up Leo Jimenez like pretty early in the year, so I got to play with like his character. And when I did that, of course, I went back and looked at his stats, couple game clips of him from like real life actually. And I like him. I sort of like what he can do, what he's about. Do I think he's going to be an integral part of this season? Absolutely not. But I think as a guy, somebody that you needed to bring in with the IKF injury, I think I really like him. We'll just see if he can translate to the MLB.
See, and I got one more thing from Ben Nicholson-Smith on Leo Jimenez. Leo Jimenez says that he looked up to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette while coming up through the Blue Jays farm system, and now is excited to play on the same team as them. As of recently, I hope he was watching a lot more Vladimir Guerrero Jr. than he was Bo Bichette, because I don't need him taking these Bo Bichette swings that Bo's been taking this season. But it's nice to see a guy that does respect other players in this Blue Jays organization. Hopefully he can make his impact, hopefully on his long time for the Blue Jays. But again, this might just be a stint thing until IKF gets back and he actually has playing time back in the minor leagues if he is sent down. Just want to say thank you guys for watching. We have noticed that I believe it is 68% of you guys are not subscribed. If you guys are coming back, watching the podcast every single day, helps us out a ton and also keeps our podcast up at the top of your feed, your For You page. There you go. It's tough out here, man. It's not as much for Blue Jays baseball, but who would have thought? I drink no water on the weekend, don't eat very good, and I'm feeling horrible to start.
You had a lot of cookies this weekend. You had a lot of cookies this weekend. That's got to do you something.
Yeah, I was out enjoying my long weekend, just getting out there, enjoying the sun. I actually got a tan, believe it or not. It's not Farmer's Tan isn't as bad, but again, I'm going back to work. It's not going to improve too much here. Just want to throw it over before we head out to Locked On 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, the Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Whatever is more convenient for you, expert analysis, the major four sports. Obviously, a lot going on with NHL free agency now. NFL's creeping up around the corner here. Obviously, MLB, NBA free agency, stuff like that as well. Perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis. I hope I feel better. Hope the Toronto Blue Jays continue to play better. That's kind of where we're at. Just looking for more positives in my future here, whether it's in life or the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I got one more morning shift, which would be today as this episode comes out, and then I'm back to sort of regular schedulely programmed until next Monday. So I am lacking on sleep heavily, but getting the job done, getting the work done, and we got a lot coming for you guys still. We're just going to get back on the TikTok and shorts grind. It just was sort of needed a bit of recovery time here. I'm trying to get at least maybe 4 hours of sleep, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, like Carter said, thanks a bunch for listening.